Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweet Combat Season 1, Episode 8. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode. Xiao Mi ends up going with Tian to his house. You know, she's bringing stuff over too, but... Oh, I forgot. I actually skipped over something because after the aftermath of like the whole Yi Chen situation, he leaves and I was like Guan Yan apologized, but he's like, I'm here because, well, Yanan is covered in hives and stuff, because I completely forgot about that last episode. And at the time I was thinking it was like poison ivy, but she's like having an allergic reaction. So Xiao Mi, Yanan, and Tian head over to his house and finds Tian's siblings playing with Queen, which obviously Xiao Mi's not too happy of, like, why are you over here? Like, what's going on? And so they sit down and have the hot dogs, but then comes the uncomfortable conversation. Where'd you get all these hot dogs? It's like, well, and then both Queen and Tian are looking at each other and it's like, we got to shut up the kids, you know? And now like, even the sister is kind of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. She's looking at Queen. She's looking at her brother like, should I say something? Because Xiao Mi's like, I will give you 1,000 hot dogs. All right, Tian's a little brother, I will give you 10,000 hot dogs if you tell me what's happening. And it's like their secret is being kept, and it's awkward because they're like, yeah, we don't want to explain things to people because people misinterpret the situation. So as they're leaving, well, before they leave though, I love that, like, obviously Xiao Mi's not too happy about the circumstances, but you look at Yanan and she's happy because it's like, oh, my friend potentially likes someone. That's nice. Because, you know, it's once again a thing of not everyone gets to see that side of her, and, you know, Yanan kind of has gotten to see that, but other people haven't. So when they're alone walking home, she's like, do you like Tian? But she's like, no, why would I like him? That's not, and it's like, oh, in fact, she doesn't say anything initially, and Yanan's like, oh, if you don't say anything, that's practically saying yes. But then, like, in her well, I don't even know if it's out of embarrassment, because at the time I was like, well, obviously she was too embarrassed to admit how she felt, but it's because she herself doesn't know how she feels, and it makes her kind of confused, because I don't think she's really ever been in this situation before. Once again, I think the trauma with this Shi Wei situation, I think that kind of messed with her, where it's like, opening her heart up to someone is just to be rejected. It's not the easiest thing. Obviously, it's super obvious that he likes her. It's super obvious that she likes him, but neither one of them can really admit it because it's too weird and awkward. But she says, like, right, like, why would I like him? He's younger than me. It's like, well, no, he's actually a year older than you despite being a first year, because obviously the conversation had come up previously. Like, yeah, he did not complete high school because he had to drop out of high school just so he can keep working. So, yeah, he's a year older than you. It's like, well, if we were in a fight, like, he couldn't last 30 seconds against me. Like, well, like, what is there to like about Tian? There's nothing about him for me to like. And the sad thing is, Tian went after her to return her thermos because she had left it at the house, but he overheard their conversation. And once again, it's like her being bashful. She can't even talk to Yanan about the fact is, she can't even be clear on, I actually don't know how I feel. Like, maybe I like him, maybe I don't. Like, she's not, and it comes up later on that she's still bouncing back and forth. Like, she's not quite sure how she feels. Like, she does like spending time with him and being around him, but she doesn't quite know, like, what that means in the grand scheme of things. And Tian, to hear all that, he goes back home. And that line from his sibling, like, when his siblings are like, oh, did you not be able to catch up? He was like, no, she was too far to reach. I was like, oh, that line. Because that line has so much meaning of, well, for one, he did catch up with her, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like, right, she's too far ahead of me. Like, what do I have to bring to the table? You know, very true to that character's, you know, whether it's the TV show, whether it's the webtoon of feeling like you're not good enough. We're two different worlds. Like, what can I give her that, like, she can't get on? Like, I don't bring anything to the table, which is so sad, you know? And he's just kind of beating himself up about it and just kind of feels, it's just like I said, specifically at that line of, like, she was kind of, too, like, she runs too far ahead or something like that. I'm butchering the paraphrasing, but yeah. But the next day at school, you have Queen at school going to the library, which students are like, oh my God, not only is Queen the best athlete here, she's also going to the library to study. It's like, oh my God, because she's picking up books on trying to understand her circumstances, trying to understand the motivation, like what's going on in her head. Like, it's like there was a book she got, what was like even independent woman, like it basically, even as an independent woman, it's okay to love, because that was even something Yanan was saying, like, right, just because you have this cold exterior and stuff, even you are allowed to, like, be curious about romance. But she ended up picking like a total of 3 books, and she's about to read them because she's like, right, like she's like, I don't, what is there to like about Tian? She's like, fine, I'll read these books and find out the answer to that. And he ended up running into her in the library and is like, oh, can I talk to you? And she got freaked out and covered up her books. And when they're talking alone, he's like, right, about the bike, he's like, I won't return it because I know you won't accept it, and I know that if I try to pay the difference, because the bike you got me is so much more expensive than the bike I originally had, and I know that you would never accept like the difference in payment, so if there's anything you need, I'll do it as kind of a thank you, and I'll keep the bike, but I want to do something in return to kind of make up for like that difference of, but she's like, right, there's nothing I want you to do for me, because she was too bashful, because it's like, why are you asking me this so suddenly? And then that line, that dejected line of like, right, of course, why would you need anything? Like, you don't lack anything. And even later on, Queen's trying to decipher that, like, what does he mean by that? Because she was like, at first it seemed like, right, they were getting along well, but then she's like, in that moment, she's like, it felt like we were so far apart in that moment. She's trying to understand it, so trying to figure it out. And so she ends up talking to Chanhua about it, trying to get her advice, and pulls the whole thing up. Well, I have a friend, and it's like, well, is this about Yan'an? And she's like, what? No. It's like, well, Yan'an's your only friend, right? And it's like, that's the embarrassing thing. I believe that it's straight from the webtoon. I want to say she was talking to Moon Young in the webtoon, and it's like, oh, like Queen's like, oh, I have this friend, and Moon Young's like, no, you don't. You're talking about yourself. She's like, what do you mean? It's like, I'm literally your only friend, and obviously what you're about to talk about has nothing to do with me, so it's obviously got to be about you and Jaegu. So it's a similar boat, but I love them playing with that in this moment. But it's like, yeah, it kind of sucks when, like, in this case, Yan'an is your only friend, so you can't really use the, oh, it's my friend excuse. Like, she's not good at just thinking on the fly, because, like, literally everyone knows that that's kind of your only friend. But getting advice from Chanhua, who is telling her, like, okay, so she's running through the scenario of like, oh, this is a friend of mine, Yan'an, she likes a guy, but it's like, does she like him? It's like, maybe not, and it's like, they were friends, and then things have changed, and it's like, it seemed like they were good, but he's getting distance now. So her perspective on it is, well, maybe he's taking a step back because he's trying to figure out Yan'an's feelings. But she's like, no, that can't be the case. Like, they were getting along fine, and this happened. It's like, there's no way he like. That's the thing, because it almost feels like in Queen's mind, just like Tian can't even comprehend the fact is that Queen might like him. She can't even comprehend, like, it never crossed her mind, like, maybe it is possible that Tian likes her, but it's because she kind of, like, she is taking a lot from their early interactions and thinking like, oh, he hates me. And even Chunhua is like, oh, maybe it's a misunderstanding, which it is, but she was throwing out there, maybe it's a possibility that he's trying to dissociate from you, like maybe big that difference, like maybe don't want to kind of be friends anymore. So it's up to, like, ultimately Chunhua's advice was, okay, basically take this situation, like, right, he wants you to do a request for you. He's like, well, how about you ask him to do something for you, and once he completes it, then you might have a better understanding of what he wants. And now she's like, okay, so what do I ask him to do? Her first thought was kind of something, she was like, oh, I can't do that. And I love that she kind of cringes a little and kind of shakes, like, ugh, when she thought of, like, oh, him buying her all, she's like, oh, can you buy me this strawberry ice cream? He's like, oh, I can buy you all of them. It's like, no, that's something Xiao Mi would do. And then the other one was when she was dealing with Shiwei, and Tian comes in and is like, no, Feng Yu is mine. And it's like, stay away from her. And she's so captivated, and she's smiling about it, but it's just like, no, what am I thinking? It's just like, it's, once again, it's so cute that you really get an opportunity to be in, because, like, obviously, like, it's only, like, her facial reactions that really give you an idea of, like, what's going through Queen's mind in the webtoon, and having these, like, ability to actually get inside her head and hear her thoughts sometimes, because the only time you really get these moments is when, like, she's like, she's kind of keeps a lot to herself, and, like, unless she's talking to Moon Young, you really never get that inside perspective of what's running through her head, and like I said, unless she's talking it out. But if she's talking it out with anyone 99% of the time, it's Moon Young. So it's just kind of neat to be able to kind of get this visual, like, thing, and just seeing kind of what's running through her head, these fantasies she has about the situation. But obviously the Guanyan and Yi-Chen situation, how that played out last episode, and plays a major role this episode, because basically Guanyan kind of chewed out the entire club, and he was basically looking at and grilling Yi Chen in particular about like, right, someone going against the code of what and the spirit of their boxing club. And even though some of the other members are like, oh yeah, like we had to show up here, I was like, oh, I wonder who screwed up. And because of that, he's taking on, like, Yi Chen obviously takes a lot of that and he takes it out on Tien. So the moment the cake showed up and it's like, oh, we don't know who it's from, I'm like, they're doing it. So this storyline is straight from the webtoon as well. Like I said, I think this incident in itself, I might have been conflating it earlier on, but like the whole, like, once again, Tien being taken from being Queen's final opponent to just being the preliminaries, I believe the aftermath of like what goes down in this episode, the punishment is that, if I remember correctly. I believe all of this is, like I said, I was conflating it with like the first time that they dusted up with the bully dude and his crew. I think it's specifically this incident and how in the webtoon Jaegu responds that kind of set everything in motion. But we'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, the moment that happened, I was like, that sucks. Another difference, an interesting difference too, is both of his siblings got sick, whereas in this show it's only his little brother that gets sick. Because what ends up happening is, to make up for like the beef between them, he brings food. He delivers it himself and gives it to Jaegu, and then Jaegu like gives it to his siblings. And so they got sick and he didn't. But in his case, it's like, no, he had it specially delivered to their house. Because also, like, that takes you being like a twisted bastard to do that, like, because you knew they would eat it, you know, because Tion would immediately be like, nah, let's not eat something like that. He's not really good at accepting stuff from other people anyway, but it's also like, right, don't want to, he probably would have checked it more. He would have known to look like, oh, check it for being spoiled or anything. So he probably would have had a better idea of what to look for. But like, once again, these are kids. Especially little brother wanted to eat it immediately. But even their sister was like, no. We have to wait. Like, we have to get Tien's permission first. But she's trying to call him at the same time he was on the phone with Zhao Mi. And by the time he tried to click over to his sister, she'd already hung up. And then they're both trying to call each other at the same time. So it's just like everything that could go wrong in that moment did. So luckily, Zhao Mi was on her way over there because she was buying stuff like to cook for the kids. Obviously, like, he's at work and he's like, oh, I won't be there. She's like, don't worry, I'll cook for the kids and then I'll like have some food ready for you to come eat when you're off of work. He's like, yeah, but I don't want to trouble you. And she's like, no, it's not going to be trouble at all. I love cooking for the kids. You know, it's really nice. Obviously trying to find her way into his heart. Obviously, it's just like, you know, playing her wifely and potentially future mother duties type of situation. I'm going to interject this part with some other like storyline beats that I think is kind of interesting. First and foremost, the whole Auntie G situation was interesting because Queen was surprised to run into her. She's like, whoa, like she was like, I was under the impression like after Uncle G died that his entire family left, but she came back, she seems well off, like what's going on there. And like, I wonder how much Queen actually knows about her Uncle G's death, you know. And it's like, they must not actually be family. He must just be like an elder that's like kind of an uncle to her. And it's like, because she's like, oh, like, you might not remember me, Auntie, but I went over to your house like once years ago. Uncle G took me over there. I was a little girl. But she was like very dismissive, like, oh, I don't know who you are, like Queen. Like, I don't know who you are, Fang Yu. So moved on. But even her brother, when they were talking about it later, was like, why would she deny even knowing you then? It's like, right, if you were pretty tight with, you know, that doesn't make any sense. Because the last time we saw her was in that flashback where Tien's dad accidentally... So it's a situation of, is that going to tie into some like dirty business with the family stuff? Like, I'm wondering what that storyline is going to be, because there was never anything shady about her family in the webtoon. It was like, there was never like any corruption amongst her family that we were aware of. Once again, it's an element of the only people really from their family you interact with the most is Queen and her brother. So you never really got to the ins and outs of that business, like, you know. So that was because that was never the focus of the story. So I'm curious if, like, the fact is that she's doing well off. It's like, did she get paid off on her husband's death or something? Like, did the business, like, did they have something to do with that match or whatever? And maybe like they were at fault for Uncle G's death and she got paid for it for whatever it was. And maybe that's why she was kind of avoiding Queen, because she was like, I don't want to know you. I'm distancing myself from you and your family. I don't know what that is. It felt like it's such a smaller thing in the episode, but it feels like so like what is that storyline going to be? Like I said, like this whole thread storyline, Uncle G and all that, like that doesn't exist in the webtoon. So I'm so curious to see where that goes. Which we also had, Queen and her brother going to eat noodles at Howl's place, and he's up there being super talkative because so happy to have Queen there, but her brother's like, man, he's so talkative, and like, you want to do me a favor, just leave. And it's like, right, he's trying to make a good impression on her, and like he's very nervous because he likes her, but like it's kind of not obvious to her or anyone else. Like the only person that knows how he feels about Queen is Xiao Mi, because once again, their whole arrangement last episode. But either way, I kind of pulled away from that. But obviously that'll all tie in. But luckily, Xiao Mi was going over there to cook, and she was able to grab Tian's little brother and take him and his sister to the hospital. And luckily, they found out he most likely got sick from spoiled food, and it turns out it's the cake. Luckily, Tian's got some connections, so he's like, right, I know some delivery people from work, so like maybe they can give me an idea. And so he was able to track down where the food came from and found out it was from Yichen. So he rushes over there, and Xiao Mi's in this situation where she wants to go with him, but she's like, someone's got to stay here to look after his siblings. So she calls up Yannan, who's like, all right, wait, let's go. She also calls in Queen, which I think this in itself speaks volumes, and I think it means a lot to Tian. Like, it ends up being this double-edged sword for him later on. But because let's not forget, Tian's like, luckily he's had decent enough people around him, like his bosses and stuff, but like he doesn't have anyone he's really close to. So for a situation where he's had to be the one to take care of his siblings for so long, it's kind of like, right, he's so busy looking after his siblings, he's not looking after himself. And to have people in his corner for the first time in so long backing him up, like it's a sucky situation, but it's still got to be, it's a conflicted thing of these people like have my back. Xiao Mi, Yannan, and Queen, all three of them showed up for me, because he doesn't have the highest opinion of himself in a lot of ways, so especially with everything between him and Queen right now, and for them to kind of roll up like that, he doesn't feel so alone. Like I said, he's there for his siblings, but he hasn't really had anyone have his back in so long, so it's kind of nice. But it is still the thing of me getting angry got me so dragged in. And once again, the parallels of they kept setting it up where he was like, right, you don't want to get into a confrontation, what is violence going to solve? That all went out the window the moment he got pissed. It's like, this motherfucker, like, you want to come after me, I'm gonna take whatever you're slinging my way, I won't lift a fist. But the moment you drag my siblings into this, nah, screw that, we're done. So all he saw was red. He rushes over to the school, which obviously plays out just like in the webtoon, except in this case it takes place at the gym. In the webtoon, it's in the classroom. He actually goes to Home Dude's classroom, and he bucked wild. He even literally picked up a chair and was going to throw it at him. He Jaegu went crazy, in that moment, and literally everyone in this gym is holding him back. And the situation plays out a little differently. How Zhao Feng handles it is different than how Hiei handles it in the webtoon, because in the webtoon she slaps Jaegu, calling him out, saying like, oh, you're disrespectful. Obviously she didn't know the full circumstances. Same thing in this regard. He's just like, no one was listening, and she's like, oh, like someone from your school come here like bolstering, acting like this. So she ends up like they end up stepping in the ring. It's like, that's how we handle things. And so she wanted to make an example out of him twofold. You're up here running your mouth, acting like this, it's so unprofessional. This also plays into her beef with Queen, because she feels like once again, the show hasn't really covered it, but she doesn't feel like Queen's a real martial artist. Like it's a thing. Like I said, it's kind of I'm more so pulling that from the Hiei and Queen relationship in the webtoon, but I think it's a little bit of that because Tian is the person that she was willing to fight over her, so that there's that, but you're also your disrespect, so I'm gonna put you in your place. And it's like, yes, he's not well trained, and he doesn't really know what he's doing because he isn't really properly trained, and because of that, he gets the piss beat out of him. He's like bruised up and everything. Luckily, Guanyan came there to kind of stop the whole situation, but it's like, why, and the fact is he's disgusted in his boxing club because he's like, not like at no point did you have the rationale Zhao Feng to stop. You know, it's like you were so like dominant in this situation, you could have stopped at any moment. And also, no one in this crowd is any better. You're having the audacity to cheer on instead of intervening. And then it asked Tian what happened. It's like, he poisoned my brother, gave him spoiled food. And obviously, like, Guanyan had already made it clear to Yi Chen, and in that moment, Zhao Feng kind of feels bad because, like, wait, that's what this is about? Like, once again, she never bothered. She was so heated herself, she never bothered to find out what was actually going on. And so, but now it's a thing of Guanyan's like, let me investigate. But it's kind of too late because now Queen and Yanan have shown up, and they're like, right, we're here for Tien. Like, we'll just grab him and we'll go. Because he's like, Guanyan's like, let me investigate. Like, there were some claims made, so let me investigate. And Queen's like, all right, fine, we'll grab him and go. But they were not too happy when they saw Tiang's face. And then obviously Zhao Mi had called up Hao to look after the kids while she goes deal with the situation. It's like, right, she's like, I'm stepping in, and so disappointed by like seeing her like Tian's face and seeing how swollen and bruised it is. But luckily the guardians from their school show up, and Chun Hua in particular, but it's because the principal summoned them and told him, like, right, whatever this is, you got to shut it down. So for him, it's like, what am I gonna do with you guys? I do obviously me bringing you in here for coffee isn't it, like, won't resolve anything. It's like, you know, because obviously the principal from like Guanyan's school and everything is bringing up, like, you know, wants reparations or whatever. They want, you know, to make things even kilter for how this all played out. And so I even love, like, the president's like, what am I supposed to do? Bring them in here for coffee too? And then Xiaomi puts up a thumbs up like, yeah, that's a good idea, President. So, like, and I love how she tried to play him for a second. It's like, yeah, like, poor Tian's brother, like, in the hospital, he's got an IV in, and he's so terrible. Elf, it's like, for one, he does not have an IV in. And it's like trying to make his situation seem more, like, tragic than it is. And Yanan and Queen are just kind of nodding along, like, yeah. And Xiaomi's like, you know, it takes, like, so, I mean, a child in a hospital bed like that, I mean, can you even be called human if you don't feel anything? It was like, I love how manipulative she can be. But Tian tried to take all the responsibility. It's like, no, like, this is on me. This was my issue. They got dragged into it. They shouldn't get punished for it. But obviously the punishment for this would be getting expelled. It's like, that's the thing. He didn't actually do anything outside of the ring. Yeah, he was threatening the dude. He never actually laid hands on him, but it's like still threat. It's still the same thing. So just like Yi Chen, like, sometimes didn't threat. I mean, he has physically touched and beaten on Tian, but it's also just kind of like, oh, like, I'm bullying you without actually touching. You know, it becomes that type of situation. But he, like, everything he did, he handled in the ring with Zhao Feng. So it's not like he, like, once again, never had an opportunity like he did in the web to full on attack him that same way. But he's still going to suffer the ramifications for it. But Queen is the first one to say, like, right, if he gets expelled, I will too, because I understand where he's coming from. I have a little brother of my own, and if anything happened, I'd be in the same position. So if you're going to expel him, then expel me too. Yanan and Xiaomi follow suit. You know, once again, it's got to be this double-edged sword of, I cause these problems for everyone, but it's also kind of nice knowing they have my back, that I'm not alone, and it's kind of a nice thing. So, which I love that the president and the director are like, here you are volunteering. We haven't even gotten to your punishments yet, and you're already volunteering for some other punishment. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to be interesting, considering the fact is that the competition, like I said, they already, like, how that plays out in the webtoon, what that punishment involved. I mean, plus they already got, like, Queen and Tian already got punished before because of just, like, how awkward things were between them. Like, him wanting to leave and transfer her, making him her opponent for the finals. Like, once again, all that was, like, the fallout from this particular circumstance. So the question then becomes, like, well, what is their punishment now? Like, what's going to happen? It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, maybe it's going to be something similar in some regard to what happened with Tian and Queen previously when they had to clean the pool, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all this, especially as Guanyan's, like, going to investigate on his own and find out, once again, how he basically finds out, like, a different way. He kind of, like, basically the bully dude ran his mouth, and he basically was like, he said like, right, like basically he got confronted by Manon, and Manon was like, yeah, like, did you have anything to do with it? He's like, dude, I had nothing to do with those kids like getting food poisoning. And then Manon's like, I never said that, like, all I said was like they got sick. I never specifically said they got food poisoning. And he's just like, right, like, of course, I just made it into something like that's how he got caught in the line. Like I said, Manon didn't really do much. He just kind of let things play out. That kind of plays into the tournament stuff. So like that's why I was asking or thinking like maybe like I'm curious if Guanyan's story is going to play out the same way, in the same vein that Manon's did, especially when it comes to the tournament. So it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. Really quickly before I end this, I almost forgot. It's up to How to get a stool sample, so he has to, get some of Tion's brother's poop just so that the doctors can run tests on it and stuff. I was like, oh, poor guy. It's not even your sibling you're having to do that for; it's someone else. But it's like, hey, it's your buddy and your buddy in love, Xiao Mi, asked you to do it, so so. It's definitely going to be interesting, like I said, to see where the next episode takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.